Now, so good evening everyone from Serbia. We are so glad that so many of you joined us today, and we are really sorry that you couldn't join us in person in Serbia. And of course, we are going to try to show you as much as we can in Serbia through this presentation, and also tonight on Saturday. Now, I would like to introduce the president of our local committee, Jovan Kremčević.
Thank you. Hello, people. I'm glad that you all here with us. Welcome to Online Serbia. We are so excited. Our team worked a lot for SERM in April. Everything was prepared, and I'm so proud that we showed to ourselves that we make it. I get some messages from you that you are sad and asked us to make it in November. I hope you will enjoy in Remote SERM as you were here. If Corona stops us to make it in autumn, we would be really glad to see you anytime in our beautiful country. Feel and keep a spirit of SERM. Thank you.
Thank you, Jovan. So moving on, our guest speaker tonight is Jelena Aleksić, Senior Research Associate at the Institute of Molecular Genetics and Genetic Engineering. The name of her presentation tonight is Serbian spruce, the Queen of the Balkan Peninsula. We hope you will learn some new things through this presentation and that you will enjoy it. And I ask you to send your questions in the chat if you have any questions, or save them after the presentation. Thank you. Jelena, the floor is yours.
So, hello everyone. Can you hear me? Okay. As Magdalena said, it's a pity that we are not on the Tara Mountain, so that we have this presentation, this talk, at this nice environment. But what can we do? This is the global problem with the COVID. And I think this is quite a good alternative to have at least some activities in this field. So I understand that you are students, forestry students from entire Europe, and it is very nice that you are interested in the Balkans and of course in the trees from the Balkans. And also I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to give this talk on Serbian spruce, which I like to call the Queen of the Balkan Peninsula. My plan is first to introduce all actors in this story. So me, Balkan Peninsula, and of course to focus on Serbian spruce. And as Magdalena said, I'm Jelena Aleksić, research professor at the Institute of Molecular Genetics and Genetic Engineering. I'm a population geneticist and working also in evolutionary biology and interested in evolutionary history of species, of trees, plants, and animals. So this was about me. And now let's start with presentation. Just show me where to, okay. So, since you are from Europe, you know where is the Balkan Peninsula. So this is one of the 3 Southern European peninsulas. And just for your information, we are here in Belgrade in this very building. So hopefully you will come and visit us here as well. So the Balkan Peninsula area is a little bit less than 500 square kilometers. 500,000 square kilometers. The mountain ranges cover approximately 70% of the Balkans. So this is mountainous regions, and trees love mountains. This is the center of biodiversity and endemism of plant species, but also of animal species. And it served as a glacial refugium for temperate plant species during Quaternary ice ages. When I say quaternary, I mean last 2.8 million years. And you will see here that temperate plant species is underlined, and you will see later on why. This region is exceptionally rich in forest tree species as well, and it served and they survived unfavorable conditions during ice ages in localized refugia. These refugia, as you probably know, served as sources for the post-glacial recolonization of Europe. When it comes, I would like to give you some numbers. So there is 27 European tree genera, and out of these genera, 26 are found in the Balkans. Just for a comparison, there are only 17 tree genera in Scandinavia. So when it comes to the number of species, just a second to find the phone. In this table, you will see there is one row, it's written species. So you see the number of species in Europe is 124, and the estimated number of species in entire northern hemisphere is 1,166. Okay, now we will have a pointer as well. Perfect. Okay, so the number of species in Europe 124, and the number of species, 3 species in northern hemisphere, more than 1,000. But we have to mention that the number of species depends on taxonomic concepts. Maybe you know that some scientists like to divide one species into several species, others like to lump several species into one. So this strongly depends on the taxonomic concept that we accept. But what we do know is that out of all 3 species recorded in Europe, 90% is found in the Balkans, and then a lower number in the Apennine Peninsula, in Iberian Peninsula, and just for a comparison, only 35 of European tree species is found in Scandinavia. And now I would like to show you where we were supposed to be. So this is Serbian spruce homeland. This is Tara Mountain. Maybe you know this is very famous tree on the rock on the river Drina. So next time when you come, you will visit it. You see it's a beautiful landscape. This is the river Drina Canyon. As I said, it's really, really nice landscape. And here in the canyon, you can see, so this is one Serbian spruce tree. This is a group of Serbian spruce trees, another group of Serbian spruce trees. So you see this species is living at very difficult sites to approach. So you see here, this is also a group of Serbian spruce trees. So again, just to give you a few numbers. So when it comes to the number of gymnosperms, there is approximately 1,000 gymnosperms with comparison to 270,000 species of angiosperms. Then when it comes to conifers, we have something like 630 species of conifers. Spruces, approximately 35 species, and 2 of them are present in Europe. One is, of course, Norway spruce. Everybody knows Norway spruce. This is one of the species which is extensively studied, and I think several thousand papers are published each year on Norway spruce, different aspects of Norway spruce. and Serbian spruce. I hope that you will have more knowledge on this species after this presentation. So this is the tree. You see very slim crown. At present, Norway spruce is widely distributed in Europe, and usually when we talk about Norway spruce, we talk about 3 domains. So this is Fennoscandian domain, Alpine domain, and Carpathian domain. And Serbian spruce is steno-endemic. This means that it has very limited natural range, and basically this species occurs in nature only within an area of 200 square kilometers. This is on border between Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. There are approximately 30 localized populations consisting of several hundred to several thousand of individuals. And this is all that we have at the moment in nature. People grow Serbian spruce in botanical gardens. There are plantations all over the world, but what is natural is only approximately 30 populations within area of 200 square kilometers. This species was widely distributed in the past. We know this because of the fossil findings all over Europe. But as I said, at present, natural range is very limited. This, what you see here, this is IUCN, International Union for Conservation of Nature. This is IUCN map. And this, what you see here, is natural range of Serbian spruce. And this is the last refugium for this species. We call it long-term refugium because this species was present here during continuously during the Quaternary, so during the ice ages and also during warm periods. And this is why we have to say that the Balkan Peninsula is not only glacial refugium for temperate plant species, but it's also interglacial refugium for cold adapted species, because of course cold adapted species like cold, and this current warm period is unfavorable for them. So basically they are surviving these conditions in refugia. Do you know any other tree species in Europe with such a limited natural range? There is, of course, one very good example. This is Abies nebrodensis, or Sicilian fir, with only 25 living trees in Sicily. So now we are back to Serbian spruce, and I would like to give you some data about discovery and then we will focus on genetics. So this species was discovered in 1875 by the Serbian botanist Josip Pančić. Then it was because of such a limited natural range, people recognized that this has to be protected, and then it was red listed by the IUCN since 1998, and it is protected by the law in former Yugoslavia since 1950, and it has the highest level of protection. This level of protection remained in both countries, Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina, which were established at the end of the last century. And all natural populations of Serbian spruce are untouched forests, which are left for free development. So this is the conservation strategy. Of course, we were interested to find out how old is Serbian spruce. So in one publication from 2013, we found that this species is 16 million years old. But then we have the latest publication last year, and we found that this species is even older, 23 million years old. I'm mentioning here only our results, but I have to tell you that some other authors have different views about the age of Serbian spruce, but I'm not mentioning this here. So this species is usually found on north-orientated slopes of hills and the river Drina Canyon, and in ravines and other sites which are not suitable for other tree species. So for instance, if you can see here, this is one population of Serbian spruce. I already showed you this picture. And this is a third population. This is on serpentine. These two are on limestone, and this one is on serpentine. And you see how beautiful this tree is. So this is a cold adapted conifer. This means it demands low temperature and high humidity. So you can imagine in the Balkans, where are these pockets with a lower temperature and high humidity, these are the places where you can find Serbian spruce. And sometimes the inclination of the terrain is 70%. So sometimes it's very difficult to approach populations. And few times we were actually forced to ask climbers to help us to collect samples. Then this species has very poor competing ability, so it cannot establish itself at sites which are already occupied by other species. But and also this is a pioneer species. This means that can easily colonize newly available sites. So it cannot inhabit some sites where are trees already, but only sites which were, for instance, destroyed by the wildfire and where there are no other trees. So this is typical pioneer tree species. Then seedlings demand light at the ground level for the development, and such conditions are sometimes are not present in populations which can be very dense. For instance, there might be 1,200 trees per hectare, and you can imagine that the light level at the ground, the light at the ground is very, very low. So it's not suitable for development of seedlings. Then this is associated with poor natural regeneration in populations, and actually it is questionable whether this species will survive in its natural habitat in case that there is no natural regeneration. I would just like to mention one thing which is important for later slides for genetic aspect, and this is the fact that this species is wind pollinated and wind dispersed. So the seeds are also dispersed by wind. So now we go to Serbian spruce genetics. So by now you know that there are low number of populations. Populations are of the small size, and they are highly fragmented. Also, we know that the pollen of Serbian spruce is smaller than the pollen of Norway spruce, and also the seeds of Serbian spruce are smaller than the seeds of Norway spruce. And we know for Norway spruce that the pollen and seeds can be dispersed at very high distances. So we can assume that the pollen and seeds of Serbian spruce can also be dispersed to large distances. So based on this, what would be the theory in genetics? Based on these features, we can expect low levels of genetic diversity in populations and species per se, because small census size of any species translates into low genetic diversity, and low level of genetic differentiation is associated with potentially high dispersal. If a species has high dispersal of pollinate seeds, then populations are communicating among themselves, and there is low genetic differentiation among populations. What is important to mention that in this case, if Serbian spruce has low levels of genetic diversity, this would be a problem, because high levels of genetic diversity are usually viewed as a prerequisite for the long-term survival, especially in terms of the changing climate. So if this species is genetically invariable, then it will probably not survive in the near future. But this was the theory. Luckily, the situation is completely different in practice. we were very surprised to discover that Serbian spruce is much more genetically diverse at both nuclear and mitochondrial level than some other conifers with much wider distribution. So please take a look at this table. So these are 10 populations, and take a look of these numbers. This is a so-called expected heterozygosity or gene diversity, and this value, this parameter has value ranging from 0 to 1. When the value is close to 1, this means that that gene diversity is very high, and you see in Serbian spruce populations is between 0.7 and above 0.8. This means this species is highly genetically diverse, and this is completely opposite to all theoretical expectations. Furthermore, populations are highly genetically differentiated, and each population actually represents an independent gene pool at the nuclear DNA level. So each population is different management unit. I do not know if you are familiar with this analysis. This is structure analysis, and I like it very much because it gives this nice visual presentation of genetic data. So you see here that each population is presented in different color, and this means that each population is different gene pool, and each population should be managed separately. Then at the mitochondrial DNA level, you know that plants have 3 genomes. So this is nuclear, mitochondrial, and plastid genome. So at mitochondrial DNA level, we found 6 haplotypes in these 10 populations. And furthermore, the distribution of haplotypes was not random among populations. So we have this one population with high number of haplotypes, which are basically not present in any other population except this one. What this means? This means that we also have 2 evolutionary significant units. This is higher level than in comparison to management unit. So we have 2 evolutionary significant units within such a small area. So we have to be very careful how do we manage and how do we conserve Serbian spruce. And as I said before, this is completely unexpected and completely in collision with theoretical expectation. Another surprise, there is almost complete lack of contemporary pollen and seed flow in Serbian spruce. I mentioned before that we, based on the size of pollen grains and seed, we might expect high dispersal, but there is again completely opposite situation. Pollen and seed flow in Serbian spruce are not dispersed at all. We found that it takes 3 generations, and let's say the generation in Serbian spruce is 50 years. So it takes 3 generations just for one seed to be exchanged between 2 populations which are 8 kilometers distant. This is really not expected in species which is wind pollinated and wind dispersed. Possible explanations for this, we do not know for sure, but of course we do have idea what might be the reason for this. This may be due to microclimate conditions, let's say heavy fogs and lack of wind during the pollination and seed dispersal, because this region at the Tara mountain is known for very heavy fogs. And the other possibility is phenological differences with regard to the onset and duration of flowering. So Serbian spruce has female cones at the top of the tree and male cones at the bottom of the tree. And it might be the case that in one population the flowering is earlier than in another population, so they simply do not match when the time for pollination during the time of pollination. Also, regarding this thing that we found, the lack of gene flow, we took the smallest population of Serbian spruce, this one here, and this population is found on 0.34 hectares, and we analyzed genetically all individuals in this population on nuclear and mitochondrial level. So here is, of course, we do have coordinates, so we have a spatial distribution, we have genetic profiles of all trees, and this is the distribution of mitochondrial haplotypes. You see these orange ones are a little bit more abundant here, yellow ones are all around population, and green ones are only in this middle part. So this is mitochondrial genome. And when it comes to nuclear genome, this was again complete surprise for us. We found 3 nuclear gene pools within a single population, and furthermore they were spatially separated. So the first gene pool is here, the second gene pool is here, and the third gene pool is here. So this means that this one population of which occupies 0.34 hectares is comprised of 3 populations. And such a specific spatial distribution of genetic variability within this population is resulting from the population dynamics in response to quaternary climate changes. So what I would like for you to remember that Serbian spruce is interesting and important not only from a botanical or conservation aspects, because it's botanical rarity and of course we have to save it. But what I just explained, this species helped us to understand what was going on in glacial refugia during the Quaternary. So this this pattern genetic structure was reported for the first time in one species in glacial refugia. So this is, for science, this is really important. But now some bad news. Unfortunately, Serbian spruce and other species are facing a severe problem, and this is global climate warming. So we know that the possible outcomes in response of 3 species to the current anthropogenic climate change are migration, adaptation, and extinction. So what we do expect, and we have a lot of simulations over the last 10 years, what will happen with 3 species in response to the climate change. So we do expect latitudinal and altitudinal shifts in distribution ranges of species. So this is just one example for oaks. So this is the current distribution of oaks, and depending on different models which were used for simulations, we see that the distribution of oaks will shrink and shift northward. So again, what we may expect, so the first response of Serbian spruce to the climate change may be similar to that suggested for Abies religiosa, and this is migration to higher altitudes. So please take a look here. This is the situation in 2015. So this is the limit where the alpine grassland starts at 3,600 meters. Due to global climate warming, this limit will shift upwards, and basically the trees will migrate in this region. So, and this will continue with the increase in temperature. This will continue. So this is the way how the trees migrate uphill. But the problem is, there are no sites at higher altitudes which are suitable for Serbian spruce. This is the problem. Another problem, it cannot migrate northward because of the barriers to migration. As you probably know, mountain ranges in Europe have east-west orientation, and this is barrier for Serbian spruce to migrate to the North Pole. We did also some simulations to see which areas are suitable for Serbian spruce, will be suitable for Serbian spruce in the future. So this is natural range of Serbian spruce, the green dots. Then the blue squares are plantations, and these red areas are areas which will be suitable for Serbian spruce in the future. So probably this species will not survive in its natural habitat, but it will survive at some other places in Europe, Southern Europe, or maybe Northern Europe. So alternative to migration is, as I said before, adaptation and survival in situ. We know by now that Serbian spruce is exceptionally genetically diverse. So this means that it's possible that Serbian spruce may successfully adapt to the changing environment by using its available genetic variability. But here I have to mention one thing, just keep in mind, because we are doing analysis at the moment with neutral genetic variation, and this is not always reflecting adaptive variation. So we have to be careful here. But anyway, since Serbian spruce has high genetic diversity, we may assume that it has good potential to survive in the changing climate. However, this is not the case because we are already recording die out of Serbian spruce trees in all natural populations and plantations, especially over the last few years. This is the scenario. So there is a drought. For instance, 2012 was a year with high drought in all Europe. Drought is causing physiological weakening of trees. This is followed by increased infections with Armillaria ostoye, and then finally trees completely dry in 3 to 5 years. So, since the number of Serbian trees infected by the pathogen is increasing rapidly, and these infections are transmitted by roots, we assume that this species will probably disappear from its natural habitats during the following 30 to 50 years. And you see here, some trees are already dead. So, in conclusion, unfortunately, the odds that the Serbian spruce will adapt to the changing climate or migrate to surrounding areas are very low. So, Serbian spruce will most likely disappear from its natural habitat in the near future. But, of course, this is the reason why we study this species. We have to do something to save it, so urgent actions are needed. And there should be joint efforts of scientists, foresters, governments of 2 countries, NGOs, and we are really working very hard in this direction. And we have a program for preserving this species during the next decade. And here I would like to bring to your attention also NGO, Biodiversity Center. This is my NGO, and we are just starting with this program for saving Serbian spruce in the following decade. So thank you for your attention.
Guys, do you have any questions?
Yeah. I'd like to ask which are the actions you think to kind of save this species? If you like think to, apart from like saving seeds and genetic material, do you think like planting it like in Norway, or is something too crazy to do?
Okay, well, if I understood, the question is what is the program for conserving Serbian spruce, right?
Exactly.
So we have first what is important for us is to save species in situ, because we have to save the standing genetic diversity to be able to collect seeds and to establish plantations in Serbia, in the Balkans, or to use this controversial approach, assisted migration. And this means that we establish these species, let's say in Norway or Sweden or Finland. But this is related also to some legislative issues, because Serbian spruce is genetic resource of Serbia and Bosnia and Herzegovina. So we have to solve how to grow something which is a genetic resource of Serbia in another country. So this is, you know, we have a lot of work to do, but the plan is to enable survival of the species in situ, to enhance natural regeneration. We just applied for one project with Franklinia Foundation for on-the-ground activities, and this means that we will collect seeds from Serbian spruce, and seeds collected from one population will be used for production of seedlings. Then we do genetic analysis of seedlings, and those genetically superior seedlings we introduce into the same population. This is how we are planning to enhance natural regeneration. So we do have a lot of activities, and as I said, you may follow this. I will be in contact with organizers, and you will see what we are doing in saving Serbian spruce in the following decade.
So I have a question. I saw this map with,
I saw this map with orange. Can you show?
Yeah, sure. This one.
Yeah. Do you plan to move the Serbian spruce in this place?
Most likely, because you see, this green area, this is where the species is currently present, but climate conditions in 50 years will not be suitable for Serbian spruce. So we are planning to take seeds from natural populations and to transfer them to these red and orange areas, these mountain areas, to establish plantations. But then we have to talk with forestry organizations. So there is really a lot of work. So we do have theory, we do have genetic knowledge by now. I'm working with these species for more than 15 years. So we do have really enough knowledge. It's just now we have to implement everything that we learned about Serbian spruce.
Do you have any theory about preserved genetic diversity, meaning how this genetic diversity is preserved if pollination is mostly done between the same population?
One of them.
Do you have any theory about preserved genetic diversity, meaning how this genetic diversity is preserved if pollination is mostly done between the same population?
Okay, so this is related with this maintenance of genetic diversity within population. So what we know and what we showed in several publications so far is that as you probably know, when the population is small, then genetic diversity is decreasing. But then this species is present in this area for a long time, and populations are migrating. So we have a decrease in genetic diversity within each population and genetic differentiation. But then when these 2 or 3 highly genetically diverse populations merge during the migration within this area, then genetic diversity bursts. And this is the way how Serbian spruce is maintaining high genetic diversity within populations. This is what I showed you, is a single population which is comprised of 3 different populations. So this is the thing. Also for pollination and for collecting seeds, I would like to mention this. So it is exceptionally difficult to work with these species because populations are very difficult to approach. We cannot use any equipment to collect pollen or to collect seeds. The only way to collect seeds is now this new technology. So we are just planning within this project that I mentioned, we are planning to buy a drone with scissors, and then this drone will fly and take a branch, grab a branch with cones and cut this branch, because when we collect cones, we do not want to damage the tree. So it's very, very difficult to work with these species, but yeah, we are really trying, and I think we will do something. So as I said, follow us and you will learn what we are doing.
Okay. Do you have any nursery production in Tara Mountain?
No, not at Tara Mountain, but we do have several seed orchards in Serbia and also in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But what is the problem with these seed orchards is that the origin of the material is either unknown or trees are related. And if you have related trees in a plantation, then you expect inbreeding, and this is a problem. So yes, we do have, and you see these blue squares are all plantations of Serbian spruce present in Serbia and in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And we are also planning to establish new seed orchards and new plantations in the following decade.
Thank you. Let's see if we have any other questions. If anyone else has a question, please write in the chat or say it.
I do. Do you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask two questions. The first one is, maybe I missed it. If you could tell us what was the original distribution of the spruce before the Ice Age.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is it's a bit provoking, but
okay.
I'm sure that you have received already this question several times, so that's why it's interesting to hear it. Since this species doesn't have an important economic role,
yes,
why would we invest so much to preserve this species while we could use those resources to preserve maybe other situations that might be also valuable?
Yes, you are right. I heard this question so many times. Okay, but let's go to the first one. We have really different views on the origin and the age of spruces and all 35 species. So I'm telling you my results, and as I said, there are some other colleagues from China which have and from United States, they have different views. So what we think is that all spruces originated in East Asia something like 22 million years ago, and Serbian spruce evolved in East Asia as well, and then migrated to Europe, and then along this northern, from East Asia to Europe, along this northern, let's say, route, and then came down to the Balkans, probably before the Quaternary. But it was not, because it has this poor competing ability and very low dispersal ability, it was not able to expand northwards as Norway spruce did. So what we think, when this species came to the Balkans, let's say before Quaternary, it just stayed trapped in this region, and now it's striving to survive in this area. We do have fossil findings in Alpine region. As far as I know, there should be a new publication soon from this Cesare Ravazzi. They found the fossil pollen of Serbian spruce in the Alps, and this should be published this year, I think. Also, there are some fossils in southeastern Serbia, and also some fossils even in Greece. So we do think that this species was widely distributed in the past, but then when it came to the Balkans, it remained trapped, and it was not able to expand northwards from this region. Is this okay?
Yeah.
Okay. And
yes,
then,
thank you.
okay, and then why to invest in this species? Well, what we know is that the Serbian spruce is highly resistant to air pollution. So it can be used for planting in cities. Also, it has this narrow, beautiful narrow crown. So people which are just to remember the word architects like this tree very much for planting in cities, because it's very first of all it's very nice, and then it's resistant to air pollution. Then, as I explained before, studies with this species helped us to understand some patterns of population dynamics in glacial refugia during the Quaternary. So it is important for us to understand what was in the past in order to be able to understand what will happen in the future, because climate warming is not happening now for the first time. There were these changes of climate during the history. So, you know, we do have knowledge of what was before, and this is very useful for us to predict what will happen in the future. And you are right, there are some more important, sort of speaking, more important species to preserve. But yeah, we are very proud. This is to have this species. This is botanical rarity. Its closest relatives are some endemic spruce species from Japan, and also Pizza orientalis from Caucasus. And we really would like to save it for future generations to be able to see this species. But I do agree with you, if we have to choose, then yeah, probably some more important species would be the first in this line of saving species.
Marcia from Greece says Dobro veče.
Dobro veče.
And she is wondering if there is any simulation done so far that shows the potential impacts of the extinction of Serbian spruce.
Potential
extinction of Serbian spruce.
No, we did not do any simulation like that, but we are planning to do this. And for instance, what is also important for these simulations is to have accurate climate data. Although it is possible to extrapolate data from nearby meteorological stations, we have only one meteorological station at Tara Mountain. So we are just planning to put data loggers to measure temperature, humidity, insolation at all sites with Serbian spruce, because you saw these sites are very specific, and I do expect a lot of microclimate conditions in different Serbian spruce populations, and then we will be able to do a lot of different simulations to relate climate with genetics, with potential survival, and also to say how long this species will survive in its natural habitat, and when do we expect its extinction.
And one more extra question from Marcia. Do you know how much the fossil pollen you mentioned dates back in the past?
I do not know this by heart, but as I said, there was this paper. This is Cesare Ravazzi from 2002, if I remember correctly, in this reference. So if you are interested, you can see this this publication, because this is one of the good publications related to fossil findings. Yeah, this is Cesare Ravazzi from 2002.
One more question from Miriana. You know, if you have so much rates of mitochondrial diversity been detected even at the sites of origin?
Sorry, one more time.
You know, if have so high rates of mitochondrial diversity been detected even at the site of origin?
I think the question is if you know if there has been any high rates of mitochondrial diversity at the sites of origin.
No, we do not have Serbian spruce at the site of origin. We have Serbian spruce now only in the Balkans, at these 30 localized populations, and that's it. So this is the only place in the world where Serbian spruce naturally grows. We do have this species Picea paleo-omoricoides, but to be honest, I do not remember where these fossil findings were present. So yeah, maybe you can find also, if you are interested in this, maybe you can find in the literature. So I know that the name of the species, this is extinct species, this is Picea paleo-omoricoides.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Any other questions?
Here again?
Yes.
Okay, so I would like, since you mentioned that you're collecting also data from the meteorological station in Tara Mountain.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you are also combining paleometeorological and paleofossil data, you know, for environmental reconstruction purposes and such stuff.
Yes, we of course want to do this, and especially because at this very point, so this is the Tara Mountain, and I think here is one locality. It is called Mitrovac, and this was a swamp. So in there is fossil pollen, which is 12,000 years old of Serbian spruce, and it was very abundant. So we know that at the end of the last ice age, there was a lot of Serbian spruce individuals in this area, because there is pollen is very abundant. And of course, we do have to focus also in combining all available data, so paleobotanical data, with genetic data, with climate data. So yeah, we are planning to do this. As I said, we have some results so far, and of course we are planning to continue to work with this species.
Great, hvala puno.
Molim.
Imate još jedno pitanje?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear her?
Yes.
Okay, so the tree line. Simply, mountains are not high enough. Very simple. For the question was why the trees the Serbian spruce cannot migrate to higher altitudes, simply because, you know, it's already at these sites at mountains, and it simply doesn't have any suitable places where to migrate.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you everyone for joining. I think we don't have any other questions. So we were really happy to have all of you here. And of course, we want to thank Jelena for her presentation and also for having time to share with all of us. So thank you, Jelena.
Welcome.
I'm going to give word to Elif if she has anything to say. And of course, we hope to see you tomorrow and on Saturday during the International Night.
Yeah, thank you so much to Sir Mosi. It was a really nice presentation, and also Jelena for joining us today. And maybe Lizon would like to add something about the participation certificate.
So to get a certificate of participation to CERN, you need to fill 3 forms, and we'll send you, we'll put a link in the conversation for each session. It's not obligatory, it's mandatory. It's only if you want a certificate. And that's all. And yeah, see you tomorrow, and have a nice evening.